I'm joined today by a friend of mine, Karen Ferguson, to talk about something she's launched, will be working on. But first, hello, Karen.
Good morning, Andy. How are you?
I'm not too bad, apart from a slightly growly voice, which sounds like I'm John Wayne eating gravel, but it's fine.
I'm sure there's a demand for that somewhere, huh?
I could do some like little jingles while it's bad, couldn't I? And then like keep them for later.
Absolutely, you should. Yeah.
Right, so we're going to talk a bit about the Maven Club, a bit about
Uh-huh.
your life, your faith journey. But what is the Maven Club right from the start? Just give us a bit of an overview, as simply as you can. What is the Maven Club all about?
Yeah, I mean, the Maven Club really is set up to help people to get going or to keep growing in their professional world. And quite often that might be somebody who's got a concept, an idea for something, a bit like, had you come to me a couple of years ago and said, I've got this crazy idea to start a radio station, then really we create a place to belong and to take away that loneliness, to help you on that journey. And we do it in a number of ways. So, first of all, we have almost like a little group of people who are at a similar stage to you or doing a similar thing. So, in the past, for me, what I've found is I've gone to some networking groups. Now, I like to talk, I like to meet people, so that's fun. But you kind of come away and you go, it's got nothing to do with what I'm actually doing, and it hasn't really helped me. Or you can go for that one-to-one coaching experience, which can be really great at helping you to think about what you want to do. But then you don't get that sense of peer support and real proper kind of like accountability and companionship and stuff. So I wanted to set something up where people really could belong. And so we created what we call crews, where you are put into a crew and it's capped at 12 people. So you're never going to get too big that you don't know each other. And then as part of that, part of the membership of that, what you'll get is you'll have a monthly meetup. We do lots of themed talks and discussions. You've got access to loads of resources. And then you get one-to-one sessions as well. So you can have that really focused, bespoke time around what does it look like for you, or what are you struggling with, or what's going well? How do you want to grow a bit more? Or what's your next crazy fad idea? And how do we like work with you on that? So that's our main kind of thing, is to have these crews where you can really belong, lots of peer support and encouragement. But then on top of that, we recognize that sometimes people need a little bit more specific training in things. So we have labs and academies, and labs are just up to a day's sort of training experience, and the academies are 3 or 6 months. So that might be then looking at something that you really want to grow in. So maybe you're in an organization and it's growing and you're thinking, we really need a comms plan. How do we go about our communication? And once you start to kind of scrape away at the layers, there's a lot to think about. So we'll do that as an academy. So you've got some self-learning, some online learning, some videos you might watch, some worksheets you might do. But then again, we'll have meetups, we'll have one-to-one sessions. So you can really feel like you're growing in your professional career. And then finally, the last thing we do is we do bespoke projects. And that's kind of more where I've come from in the more recent years, which is where that person does have that idea. And sometimes that's like a huge local authority or the NHS, and they've got an idea, but they haven't got the capacity to roll that idea out. So we'll help them to think about what's the best way to make this successful and sustainable, and how do we get everyone trained up and on board. We might write training packages and all sorts. So it's very bespoke around what that individual needs or what that organization needs. So we've split it down into those three categories just so that it can help everybody to get what's right for them in that time. That wasn't a very quick summary at all.
No, it was interesting though. I'll tell you what I picked up on. You said groups of 12 because back in the day, we used to run groups in the church, and part of that thing was discussion based around Bible and topics and stuff. But what I'd found was when you get to about 15 people,
Mhm.
now it's really hard to talk. And you could come away thinking, I've just sat there for 2 hours in silence because
Yeah,
everyone else is talking. When you've
yeah.
got six people, it's just, oh, this is very close, isn't it? So actually 12 is a really good number. And I remember that really clearly from it's just enough because not everyone's always going to be there. So 12 is
Exactly.
probably nine, but nine is a great number. And actually, when you are all there, 12 is great because you, like you say, you actually do. I think our brains can kind of deal with 12 with 11 other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also there'll be a whole host of personalities in that. And so depending on where you sort of sit on that spectrum, if there's too many people, and you're perhaps a little bit more introverted or shy in that setting, then you can just get lost. If you've got some sort of quite loud and big contributors, you can manage it in a smaller group.
Guilty.
And because yeah, guilty too. But because of that kind of number, like you say, people can't always make it because life happens, right? And you can't always, even with the best intentions. So we do smaller groups, but we'll cap it, and I think that's a really important thing. And with our academies, we actually cap them at 8 because we just want that to be a really good time of learning where people feel like it's very much working to their needs, so that they feel like they start somewhere and they actually leave feeling more equipped and more confident. That's what we want to see, is that confidence and knowledge to grow. And essentially people not to feel lonely. It is so lonely if you're being entrepreneurial or pioneering or anything like that. And that great old friend imposter syndrome will hang around as much as possible to try to take us out. So yeah, so we're hoping to take away that loneliness and just to bring such encouragement. Because so many people have got amazing ideas, and with the right support and focus and encouragement, oh, isn't it amazing what could come from this? Like, that's what really excites me, just to think of what things might be birthed and come to life through this.
Yeah, it is lonely. I mean, I've got an amazing team. I've got a wife. I've got a family. We've got supporters. We've got trustees, and there's all these, I suppose, levels of support operating in different ways. And yet, still, quite often, as the guy who's at the top of this one,
Mhm.
it's still quite a lonely place when you're standing there. I mean, yesterday, I had to make a decision with cancelling all live radio for the day because we had a medical emergency come up.
Yeah.
That sort of decision actually was really easy for me.
Uh,
Other decisions, it can feel really hard. Well, how do I do this? Should I do this? There's
yeah.
nobody else who's doing pure 24/7 radio. So where do I go
Yeah.
to meet
Absolutely.
somebody else who's as crazy as I am?
Yeah, and I think it is kind of meeting your crazies that helps as well, isn't it? But it is that sense of, you always feel like you should know, or why is something that seems so big for you but is very easy for someone else? And we'll all have those different challenges, and there's something about that peer support of being able to just chat that through in a safe space, to kind of go, you're not strange, you're not weird, or hey, I tried that and that actually worked for me. And that real sense of kind of not being alone. And you're in a growth thing, you do have a team. So that's why you were in different crew to somebody it's just a very early startup idea, because the challenges they're facing are quite different. You have faced them, but what you're going through now is that growth stage, and sort of thinking, how do we do this? And finances become a big deal, don't they? And all of those other sort of challenges and stuff. So, and one of the reasons the Maven Club started is because I was doing a lot of concept development with people, and terrible. Don't get a business plan from me, but my business plan was basically do yourself out of a job. That a terrible business plan? But the reality was that I wanted to work with people to help them to get their idea to a place where it could flourish and it could be sustainable. And so the idea was that I do myself out of a job. I walk with them for a certain amount of time, and then they're feeling more competent. But I've stayed in touch with most of those people because I've really invested, and I love to see what they're doing and hear their stories. And I just saw increasingly, now they're at the stage, they're a few years down the line, they maybe have a team, and or maybe that some of the charities that I've worked with, they're now looking at, funding bids and stuff like that. And their challenges are entirely different. And actually, it's really hard as a leader when you've birthed something that is yours and you've lived and breathed it, to then grow and let go of bits. That's the only way it really does grow. So I was finding that I was having more and more conversations with those that I'd worked with in the early days who have become successful, but are now like, we don't know what it looks like to be a CEO, or what these challenges, how to face those. So that's when I kind of thought, I need to do something that helps people at different stages. in a way where they've got peers around them that are going to do far more. Because I don't know what it's like for you, Andy, but I sometimes find that just being in a room and listening to people or asking a question that has been on your mind, you can find the answer just because you're with other people.
Yeah.
And there's something quite magical about that, isn't there? Sometimes where
Mm.
you just feel a sense of safety that you can explore and feel encouraged to have a go, and it's okay to make mistakes as well. And that's the other thing, isn't it? It'd be about being around people where, you know, failure is part of it and it's okay. And how do we manage ourselves and pick ourselves up from that? So
I'll tell you the image in my head. What's the thing with the bushes where you shape? Is that topiary, where you like make a ball out of
ooh,
a hedge? All that stuff.
I don't know. Now I wish my quiz partners were here.
No,
Where's Steve and Dr. Karen when you need them,
I don't
hey?
know.
But
That one.
let's say
Anyway,
yes.
okay, let's go for that. But that's in my head. And the problem is, if we are standing there sculpting and we're trying to make a ball out of a hedge, actually, we need people who aren't going to say yes, boss, because they're working for us, who are slightly enough removed to say, do you know what? You've got a big bulbous thing sticking out there that's not supposed to be
Yeah,
there that you can't see
yeah,
because when you're turning around, you've got the wrong perspective. That's where other people, not in a nasty way, but just saying, did you know it's sticking out? Which nobody else wants to say who's working perhaps for
yeah,
you because they're your, they're people who are employed by you, for example. But somebody else who can come along and say, that's not straight. You
yeah.
might want to
Very
fix that.
much so. Very much so. And you don't always know what your blind spots are, do you?
Yeah.
When you're really in it and you're absorbed in it, you can't always see in the same way that someone else may be able to. So that sense of kind of being a part of something is really helpful. And also the one-to-one sessions, I mean, they are just so pivotal in terms of being able to think, wow, I was overwhelmed, but now I feel like I've got a next step idea and I feel
Mm.
like I can still do this. And yeah, I was meant to do this. And one of the biggest battles for most people is not what else is happening to them, but it's what's happening inside of them. You know, the voices in our head
Yep.
are often the hardest ones to overcome. And when you find yourself in a place where you can safely kind of admit that and then hear that that's actually not so abnormal, other people hear these same voices in their head, and you can start to normalize that struggle, it's really releasing actually and really helpful for growth. You realize what sort of your biggest battle is often your own mind,
Mm.
and your own limitations or your own blind spots. So yeah, it's good to have people together encouraging them.
Always. Right, let's go back a bit in time then. So, what's your journey of faith? I love to find out what people are doing, but I really delight in finding out not just what they do, but how on earth did you get to this point? Because I love
Yeah.
that journey. So, what's your story of faith?
Yeah, don't you love that beautiful gift of hindsight when it all makes sense and then you can call it faith? Whereas at the time it's like quite foolishness maybe. But yeah, so I'm one of these people that's really, really privileged because I grew up in a home where I was loved. My mum and dad became Christians in, I think, when I was really, really young. So I kind of grew up in a great church environment, knew I was loved. I'm one of four siblings. And I didn't feel like we were compared or anything. I felt really released to be me. And I know that that is quite an unusual story, really, to have that. Funnily enough, when you're then a teenager and you've got a faith and stuff, you can sort of feel like you haven't really got a testimony. Nowadays, as an adult, I'm like, whoa, own that testimony. What a joy not to have those struggles and stuff. Um, and then I basically I got married really young, the first time round, and had children really young, and essentially took a bit of a career break to focus on being a full-time mum, really. But in the church I was involved in, we had it in a school that was in a deprived area that, you know, had everything, all of those lovely labels and stickers attached to it. And we were just asked as a church if we would perhaps just get involved in supporting families. And so that was my heart to do that. I'd always come from a place where I recognised how privileged I was. My dad was born out of wedlock during the war, and you know he was placed into a home and stuff. And so I have that heritage of trauma, a traumatic childhood for him that by the grace of God, that didn't come through. And he is the most amazing father and grandfather and man and husband and friend and everything. And I recognize that. So I always felt like I wanted to pay something back, because I felt privileged to have had a home where I was loved. And so I wanted to get involved. And one thing led to another. And before I knew it, we were actually asked by the Innovation Unit, which was part of the UK government, to write a parenting programme.
Wow.
And that's when my knowledge of imposter syndrome kind of very much kicked in. Me, like, I'm just a mum, what's going on? But a series of events, we essentially wrote this this program. We didn't call it a parenting program, because I feel like that label in itself is so accusational. It was a family skills program, and it was created with real people from the school, from this environment that has all these labels, just to show the reality of life and family life. Not for us to say this is how you should do it, but for people to do lots of reflective work and have some ideas of different skills and try things out. And it kind of took off and was a bit of a success. And I remember the local authority then, like, they had a meeting with us, and we'd put all of this stuff together with DVDs and workbooks and training packages, and like all completely doing it first time, not really having a clue. And they like came and looked, and they said, yeah, we want this in all 175 schools, and we want you to train like TAs and that to run this. And it's like, oh my gosh. So our business was born, but it wasn't thought about. It just was a set of circumstances. Fast forward a little bit, our family moved overseas for we were part of setting up an NGO and a church plant in Brazil. So I kind of left that behind to go off and do that. That didn't go well. It didn't work out for us visa-wise. We were forced to come back. And at that point, that is the shortest way I've ever told that story. It's a very long story. But at that point, I was approached by another local authority that knew me from this programme before and said, we've got this idea for an early years programme, and we haven't got a clue what to do. You did that. Can you help us? And then again, I'm like, no, I'm just old me. How can I do that? But felt that nudge and did it. So I kind of became a consultant accidentally, and started to help this other local authority, at which point it then needed to become a business. And when it became a business, I thought, well, I want to see if this works in a field that I'm not so familiar in. So I partnered with somebody and looked at substance misuse. So we created a program that was aimed, actually in prison. We'd seen a link between substance misuse and reoffending and literacy levels. And so we created a program that was still all evidence-based and CBT-based and stuff, but very much looked at bite-sized things and pictorial things, so that the words didn't get in the way from that learning and that reflection and stuff. And then off the back of that, just lots and lots of different things, and found different people just, coming and asking for support. And then the next project would come and the next project would come, and found myself sitting in meetings and stuff where I'd be asked if I'd work in organisations at the core of, like, I'd be in London with a senior leadership team of a massive national thing, and thinking, qualifications wise, I couldn't walk into your organisation and get the lowest of low jobs, and but just found through this process that you start to perhaps fight the imposter syndrome and learn that you have got some gifts, and that those can be used and utilised, and God does work in mysterious ways and places us in different places. So I spent the last 10 years working in concept development, and that's been from individuals to like I say, huge organisations, or the nice challenging ones are the collaborations between like local authority, NHS, and another charity that want to work together but really don't know how to. So those have been great, actually. And then always coming in from this place of seeing the person and the value, and looking to tease out the strengths and not just criticize the difficult parts and stuff, but to help people. And I think also when you're working with entrepreneurs, they they want to start things. They don't always want to do the harder part in the middle and the sort of sustainability. So a lot of the time I'm helping them to manage the next thing and not do it quite yet, but not to crush them, but to help them to sort of manage what still needs setting up and what bits need doing now. And then you can bring in the next idea and stuff. So that's kind of like a bit of my journey. I think once you've been around for a while, it can take a long time to tell the whole story, but that's sort of the professional journey, if you like, that there was a period of time where I was director of communications at a theology college as well. And I sort of was doing that alongside the business, but I think my heart to do business was just so overwhelming that decided that that's really what I needed to be doing all the time. So
We all have different skill sets and giftings, but it's really amazing to see how God has opened doors that you possibly didn't even know existed to put you in places that you thought, like you said, how am I here? And yet you're there because God clearly wanted you to be there, in order to learn, to do, to grow, to develop, to find these ways. And now we can fast forward on from all that lot to the Maven Club of how can I help people? Which through all of your story, that's the one common thread: is how do I help an individual do what God has called them to do?
yeah, and I think like I remember really clearly, I think I was about like 19, 20, 21. I just remember God giving me a really clear vision to look through his lenses, not to see what I see, but to see what he sees. And that's kind of been my mission in life, is to see what God sees and to do whatever I can to call it out.
Mm.
And on a sort of voluntary basis, I've been involved in quite a number of charities and organizations where the damage that people walk in and the pain that they walk in, if I get to just be a small part of saying, that's not what I see, this is what I see, and then you see them start to walk into the reality of who they can be, it's addictive. It's the most beautiful blessing to see somebody that didn't know something good about themselves or hasn't heard something good about themselves to then start to take those steps into who they truly are meant to be and walking in that fullness. And yeah, and so the Maven Club is an extension of that, really. It's doing that in a professional environment, but I still do that in other environments as well, because I just think, isn't it amazing to see people be who they're meant to be and walk in that fullness? And if you get to say something that helps somebody, what a privilege.
Yes, basically. That very perfectly finishes off the idea of what's the Maven Club. Because then it speaks of your heart of, okay, this is, it's a business at one level, but it's a passion, and it's a lifelong journey that you've had so many experiences from Brazil, from what your dad went through. All of that then, adds together and multiplies in the way that only God can, of
Yeah.
redeeming out the bad stuff and the good stuff growing so magnificently that then you're here with clearly such a heart and passion to actually serve individuals who, I mean, I know what it's like to be CEO of a radio station when people said this is mad. I've had that my entire life with stuff I've wanted to do, I suppose, as a sort of a touch of the entrepreneur. But I remember when we had a shop at one point, and somebody who came up who I thought would be really opposed to the fact we'd sold our house, we invested everything into a business, and he said, "You probably think I don't think this is a good idea." And I said, "That's exactly what I was thinking." He said, "But you did what people don't do. You took a chance, and whether it works or whether it fails, you tried, and most people don't try." And I guess that's your heart and passion, is to get people to step away from here's my idea to here's my idea, I'm going to try.
Yeah, and share it. And that's the scary thing, when an idea becomes released into the critical world, it is scary. And so being there to help people and to kind of just, yeah, walk through that with them and help them to not be overwhelmed by that is great. And obviously more recently, I got remarried last year to Ken, and you'd think our worlds were entirely different, but actually he did it a very sensible route. He's a doctor, but he did his master's looking at sort of leadership, and then took on some pretty serious positions within the NHS at leadership and stuff. So that sort of educated approach with great big organizations as well is just proving to be so valuable to what we're doing in the Maven Club as well, because mine has been so much more grassroots. And although obviously I've done a lot in large organizations, I think my heart and my leaning is always in that individual's ideas and bringing that to life. So it's really lovely now that we've kind of got this spectrum between us of experiencing what does it mean to nurture leaders and ideas. So yeah.
I'm presuming, therefore, that the Maven Club is not a local thing to where you live, but is this a remote thing, support?
Yeah, it is very much so. I think the world changed, didn't it, with the sort of the little pandemic moment that we all experienced. And I did used to do a fair bit of video conferencing before that, but I think now it's become people's norm, and the reality of, you know, a lot of the trustee meetings and stuff I have now are online, and that saves a lot of time in travel and that, and you can be quite productive and stuff. I didn't want geography to stop people. So it is a virtual experience. However, that is a really strange thing for me, because I love people and I love being in the same room as people. But I feel like we've made it personable enough and bespoke enough and interested enough in the individual that it can work. And I think that there's something quite exciting in that, because within your crew you can have really different sort of demographics and geography going on, and so you're connecting with people that you maybe wouldn't have that opportunity to in the same way. Now, if we get really huge, then I'd love to be able to do in-person things as well, but this is really about making it work and making it affordable for people, because the bespoke work is not everyone can afford to have someone just come and work alongside them, whereas being a member of a crew, you know, it's 30 quid a month, but you get all this stuff thrown in, and you get these one-to-one sessions as well. So it's like you're getting so much for your money, and then you're meeting people that perhaps wouldn't get access to. And if that helps you grow in your journey or helps your idea grow, then I'd say that's probably money well spent. So
Where do people find out about you then? I guess you're on socials, websites and stuff.
yeah, we're on socials, but you know, we're kind of living by what we promote, in that we don't have this horrendously large budget or anything. You know, it's an organic growth, and really looking to connect relationally. That's so important. So but we're welcoming people. So you can find us on socials, or you can just go to themavenclub.co.uk and find out more there. Get in contact if you want to. We're actually piloting a couple of crews at the moment, and we have got a couple of free spaces for a 6-month membership to be part of that pilot, either in the growth crew or the comms crew. So if you work in communications, marketing, anything along that line, please do get in touch. Or if you're at that stage, if you're an Andy B and you've birthed something, you're growing it, maybe it's within its first sort of 5 years of existence or so, come and join our growth crew and meet up with others who are on that same sort of journey, different experience, but where you're bound to get some good support and not feel alone. So we've got a couple of spaces that are going. So if anybody's interested in that, they can email us through the website, or just info@themavenclub.co.uk, and we'd love to welcome you on board.
Fab. Thank you, Karen. I knew a small, tiny piece of that journey, but it's very fascinating to hear. Just, I say this frequently, and maybe it sounds boring if people keep hearing this, but it's exciting because I keep on seeing this amazing tapestry of interwoven moments of life where you think, what am I going through this for? This is pointless. What's this got to do anything? Like trucking, what's that got to do with running a radio station? And yet, having been a truck driver is wonderful because we do quite a lot of traveling, and we've got much more traveling coming up. So that one skill, that's just one, is perfect for what I have to do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's never wasted, is it?
No.
That's sort of like, even in those really challenging times. And, you know, if you do anything like this, there are challenging times that comes with the territory. But even in those challenging times, if your mindset is to recognize that nothing is wasted, you do view it differently, and it will be used in a good way at some point. And as we get older and we look back, we can see that more clearly, can't we? At the time, it's not always so easy, and it's confusing at times, isn't it, to be kind of still going for something when you're not quite sure if this is working out or not. But that's why we're here, to help you, to help bring the normality to that.
Cool. Just give us the website one more time for people.
It's themavenclub.co.uk.
Karen, thank you for sharing some time and just sharing your heart, your passion, and also about the Maven Club, which I just think is brilliant. So thank you.
Thank you.
Here at Pure 24/7 Radio, we have had the privilege of speaking to some amazing people with amazing stories.
So I was already doing the work of an evangelist, and then I discovered that there was a term for it. And then I realized, well, I really wanted to learn more about the Bible and Christianity. So I went to theological college.
Most people think that my life as a marine biologist was spent riding on the back of a dolphin into the sunset.
That's my view.
Yeah, I did that never.
Been on the road 35 years, man and boy, doing magic and comedy to communicate the gospel. When I started off in 88, I was doing escapology. I kind of took that on from a friend of mine called Pete Gilbert, who was a real pioneer in creative communication.
If you have missed any of these interviews or would like to hear them again, you can. Simply head over to our catch-up section at www.pure247radio.org. That's www.pure247radio.org.